But there is no treasure, there's just loot. But there is a treasure. Intro. Hey guys, welcome to a new video. I'm Pascal from Orange Pixel, and today we're going to talk about Pac-Man and one of my own games, Heroes of Loot, and more specifically the artificial intelligence of the enemies, ghosts, monsters, and how they know where to find the player. This may sound very technical and very difficult, but the whole point of this video and the series of videos I plan to create is to keep this on a very simple level so that hopefully everybody can understand. And I also want to show other newer developers that are usually working with the best libraries and physics engines and whatnot, that there is often a very simple trick to do the same type of things with a lot less processor power required and very little code. So we're going to talk about how the enemies know where to find the player, and we're going to do it a little bit visual. So I'm going to install the overhead camera and then we'll get started. Let's go. Alright, now let's explain this drawing. Let's remove the little pieces of the paper. So the way the level of a game works is usually, or in many cases in 2D games, based on a grid. This is called a tile map, pretty much like the tiles in the kitchen or in the bathroom. Every tile has the same size and dimension. The most basic form of a tile map is you have solid tiles and you have empty tiles. So this is all the wall tiles right here, and this is all wall tiles. This is all empty area where the player can move, enemies can move, items are dropped, etc. Alright, so how does the artificial intelligence know where to target the player and how to target the player and how to move away from the player? Let's create this a little bit simpler. Let's remove these guys and let's put in some more obvious choices here. Alright, so this is the player, the hero, and this is one of the enemies. So 60 frames per second, the enemy is checking where the player is, on which tile is the player located, and which tile am I located, and then it targets a tile at the player or surrounding the player. The more interesting choice is surrounding the player, because we don't want to target the exact spot of the player, we want to keep a little distance when we are near the player. So let's say it targets the tile to the right of the player, which is in this case this little tile right here. It will then start moving towards the tile horizontally and vertically. Luckily for this guy, it's already on the same row of the tiles, so it just needs to move to the left, and then it's already a lot closer to the player, at which point the player obviously also moves, so it might just move towards the enemy. If you're brave enough, that's what you do. And then the enemy thinks, yeah, but I'm targeting the tile to the right of you, which is currently this tile, so it will just stay where it is and it will just start attacking. If the player moves even closer, it will start moving backwards because it always wants to be on the tile to the right of the player. Another situation could be where the enemy has a little different take on how to attack the player the best way. It will only attack the player if the player is not looking at him and moving in another direction, and it will then attack at the bottom right corner of the player. So as long as the player is moving and looking at that spot, this guy will slowly be moving towards this place. Now, the rule for him is obviously that it will only attack if the player is not looking at him and not moving at him. So as soon as you turn around as a player, this guy might suddenly be targeting a completely different tile somewhere further back from the player, and you could move towards him and he would still be backing up and maybe shoot from afar. This is really used in a few cases in Heroes of Loot. Some enemies will never get near you, they will always approach you and then from a distance start shooting at you. Other enemies are much more comfortable with close combat, so they will actually try to target the tile that you are on. And that's it. That's really how simple code can be. I've seen other developers trying things like this with complicated stuff like calculating paths and a lot of libraries. This code literally takes about 4 to 6 lines of code to get your enemy targeting and moving towards the player. It's very simple stuff, and if you have a game like Heroes of Loot where you have hundreds of enemies moving around, you want this stuff to be as simple and fast as possible, and this is just one of the ways. When I was creating Heroes of Loot and trying to decide how to actually do this, because it was my first time trying to get a top-down game working like this, a dungeon crawler, I was figuring out what was the best solution or example to do this. I ended up with Pac-Man, which is a maze game and basically a top-down dungeon crawler. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this wasn't too technical, and I hope a lot of people managed to follow this, and maybe if you're a game developer or interested in games, this was entertaining and interesting information for you. If you play games, or if you play Heroes of Loot or Pac-Man, give it another look. Look at how the ghosts in Pac-Man are not always chasing you. Some of these ghosts are just programmed to move right when you move left, or move up when you move down. Others are always targeting behind you. Just check them out, and it might help you get a high score in Pac-Man, or maybe know how to get around the enemies and creatures in Heroes of Loot. And that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, let me know in the comments below. Give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I got a few more of these ideas planned, so we'll see when I get around to them. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye.